I have writer's block, and I didn't think I'd ever say those words ever again. Hi, my name is Dawn Dalton. I am a freelance writer and an aspiring author, and this year I am working towards getting my first book self-published, and I'm taking you along for the ride. Last week I barely wrote, and the week before that I didn't write anything of consequence. In fact, I've barely written a word since the end of July, since the end of camp. But the first week was a convention week, so I didn't have the energy or the time to really write once we got to the convention. Now, all of this comes in conjunction with me starting to get my beta reader feedback. I have about half of my beta readers have turned their feedback back in, and there's a bunch of stuff that I want to change, lots of little tweaks. And I'm in a very weird in-between place where I want to change stuff, but I also want to leave it the same for the rest of the beta readers so that they can have the same experience as everybody else. And it's driving me absolutely nuts. The feedback has been mostly positive. Mostly. Some of it has been harsh. Food for thought, but not what I thought it would be. Like how two main characters have inverse character arcs, and not in a good way. And now I have to change things to kind of level them back out. Now, nothing I need to change in book 1 affects anything in books 2 or 3, which I'm currently working on. But it was a blow to my self-esteem, and it knocked me off my game. But I still got some writing in, even if it wasn't what I should have been working on. I wrote in my Portal Fantasy book just a few pages, not even enough to really count. So this week is all about dusting myself off and getting back on the horse. I finished my commonplace notebook at the end of last week, so it feels like a fresh start in a brand new notebook. This week, I want to fill in my missing chapter in Roll of the Dice, add at least 7 pages to press start, and write at least 7 more additional handwritten pages. I also have an online book launch summit this week, so I have a few sessions that I want to take. So what's the plan to get me to actually get back to writing? Number 1, I'm not going to beat myself up for taking the time off. I've been going hard for over a year on my writing without a break. In fact, my writing has been so good that I thought I cracked the code on never having writer's block ever again. Joke's on me. Number 2, I'm setting a writing schedule. I mostly let my writing take all day, and I think I need just focused time to do it. So I want to get in some of the write with me's this week, so I have to look at the schedule for that. Number 3, I need to hydrate. I've fallen off of my good habits, and I need to get back on them. So I'm going to see how many of the boxes I can tick off this week, including but not limited to my water intake, because I know that last week I was dehydrated, and that never helps my brain. And number 4, I'm going to decorate this week's weekly spread. I have these really cute washi tapes that I got at Five Below. The happier my planner looks, the more likely I am to use it. So I need to make everything as bright and cheerful as possible to help get me out of this funk. But first things first, let's get my desk cleaned up and get this week started. Yesterday went really well for my writing. I would love to say I'm cured of my writer's block, but it's a tricky process. I did put 600 words into Roll of the Dice, 1 page into Press Start, and 1 page into Another Story. I think having a block of time where that is what I have to focus on is my writing was a good thing. The bad thing being the book summit that I'm taking online isn't very good. None of the sessions we aren't told what they're going to be talking about, just who's going to be talking. And it usually takes half of the session before they finally start talking about something other than themselves. And I'm skipping a lot of stuff because none of it seems worth it. So I'm still giving myself 2 hours every day to look at some of the stuff, but if they haven't gotten to the point within the first 10 minutes, I'm done. I'm moving on. I'm not going to waste hours of my time to have these people just basically talk about themselves because I have other things I should be doing. Today, I've already written 2 pages in Press Start. I have at least another couple of hours of writing time blocked off. I have class tonight, so I have to still go to that. But yeah, so far so good. I'm feeling really optimistic about my writing. And I've ticked off most of my daily habits yesterday. I only missed stretching. And I think that's also helping getting back into having healthier habits. So, happy Wednesday. I am doing really well this week, which makes me really happy that I'm getting back on track. I'm not going to say I have this writer's block licked, but it is starting to look like it was just a momentary hiccup and not a larger problem. I did do just a little over 500 words in Roll of the Dice yesterday. I wrote 2 pages in Press Start and 1 in another book. So I'm a little bit ahead of schedule for the week. I did have a thought last night about the order of the books, and I do want to play a little bit with the idea of switching the order of the subsequent books, not Game On, because obviously that is the book that kicks everything off and also kind of keeps everything moving, because there is a thread through the background of everything else that starts in Game On. Today I do need to do a little bit of running and a little bit of work before I get to my regular writing. I have a branch in the backyard that needs to come off the play set because we had a storm this weekend, and I just realized that there is a huge branch sitting on top of the play set. I need to do a little bit of running to the craft stores because I need more yarn. I'm almost done with my husband's blanket, but I'm running out of yarn and I won't have enough to finish this. So I have to get yet another skein of it. Other than that, I need to finish one of my interviews, get that written up and sent into my editor, and then I can get to working on Roll the Dice and Press Start. So let's go. I may have overestimated my ability to move that. I probably should have waited for help, because that's basically like half of a tree that I just pulled out of the play area. But I'm gonna get this moved across the yard and out of the way, and then I can move on with the rest of my day. I'm not saying that my writer's block is completely gone, but I think the time off did help because now my brain is popping off with ideas. Last night I did get a little over 500 words put into Roll of the Dice, but most of that was just sort of a brain dump as to what needs to change, what needs to happen to make books 2 and 3 and 4 really good. I did write 2 pages in press start. Today is going to be a super big writing day. I need to finish typing up this interview. I need to start in on the review copy so that I can get a review article made. I'm going to watch just one session of the book launch thing that I signed up for this week, because it was the session that I really already know who this person is and I kind of want to hear what she has to say. And then it's just doing my regular writing, and hopefully it goes well again today. I do have a big thing that I'm gonna be talking about next week as far as my writing and what's gonna happen to my series, because I am going to be doing something a little bit crazy, and hopefully it works out and it's worth the risk. But I don't want to talk about that yet because it's going to take a lot of work on the back end, and I'll show you the process next week. So let's get to writing. I'm going to watch this last session, and then I'm going to get the interview done, because those are the 2 things that I can just knock off right away and move on with my. So while the week's not over, and I don't think I've fully kicked my writer's block to the curb, I have a feeling that this is going to be something that I deal with time and again. And part of my problem, I think, is the fact that I'm writing my books in the wrong order, which leads to a lot of work, which I will talk about next week. But I think a lot of the stuff that I implemented this week helped get me back on a routine that got me to a place where my brain is actually thinking about my creative work. It also allowed me to push past the block I was having on writing one of my articles. So all in all, pretty good. What I did right this week is I hydrated and I took my vitamins. I think part of my problem was I got into a really bad habit of, oh, well, I just didn't drink enough water today, whatever. Oh, I forgot to take my vitamins. It's no big deal. Until it becomes a habit of not taking your vitamins and drinking your water and getting out of the chair occasionally to walk around. I've written more this week than I did last week and the week before combined, if you don't count all the writing seminars I took while I was at Gen Con. This week's book launch thing that I took was mostly a bust for me because it didn't feel cohesive, and I wasn't really given the option to see what they were going to talk about, and half the time they were literally taking up half the time talking about themselves and how they got to this place before they dispensed any kind of information. So a little bit of a bust. I did get a few good things out, less than a page worth of notes for an entire week. So I'm going to take that all with a grain of salt. A few tips on if you are dealing with writer's block yourself. Number 1, get out of the house. Change your locations, even if it means that you have to go to just a different part of your house to see if that helps unstick you. I know a lot of times when I'm sitting at my desk, I will allow myself to be way more distracted than if I sit at my table or my chair. So try to minimize your distractions, or literally get out of the house, go to the library, go for a walk, go to a coffee shop, anything to change your location and just to jar your brain out of being stuck in the same spot. Number 2, talk it over with a friend. Find a friend who either writes or who's willing to listen and offer suggestions if you need suggestions. One of the big things I have is a few friends who are actually writers, who I'll be like, look, I'm stuck at this part. Like, I know where they are right now. I know where they have to be in like 2 chapters, but I don't know what happens in between. And we'll just sit and we'll talk and we'll just throw out ideas. And usually the solution comes somewhere between Claire's idea and my idea. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, I didn't even think about that. What if we did it this way? And I've unblocked what's going on. Number 3, take care of yourself. One of my big things this week was getting back to drinking 75 ounces of water every day and making sure that I'm taking my vitamins. I think that was a big thing for me, was just making sure that I'm taking care of myself before I take care of my work. I don't work if I'm not taking care of myself, or my work suffers because I'm not taking care of myself. And I did need a bit of a reset from the convention. I did come back too tired and too worn out to really do anything. And the first article I wrote back definitely reflected that. In fact, my editor really took a huge red pen to it and saved my butt. And the article was way better because he came along and fixed it. Number 4, read. Read out of genre. You'll never know what kind of ideas are going to spark because you're reading something that is nowhere near what you are writing about. You know, I read fantasy and mafia romances. I'm writing contemporary romance and there's no mafia in this book, but occasionally I'll come up with a really interesting idea that I want to twist into a story because I read something out of my genre. Number 5, try a timer or a write with me. There are a ton of writers online who do YouTube videos where they literally set a timer and you just sit there with them and write while they're on a live. And then when the timer goes off, you tell them how you did, and it is a bit of a community. A lot of that did pop off in the last few years because of the state of the world and the necessity of needing a community even though you can't be with a community. It helps to know that you're not alone. Or you can try a prompt. Even if that prompt doesn't end up in your work, even if it's completely and utterly outside of the scope of what you want in your book, it might show you something interesting about your character. And lastly, be kind to yourself. Every writer at some point in their career has run up against this brick wall. Not all of them will call it writer's block, but everybody has sort of hit a brick wall. Neil Gaiman wrote Coraline 50 words at a time. You can do this, just keep going, and we'll get through this together. If you're enjoying watching me struggle bus through this project, be sure to feed the algorithm, boop that like button, and subscribe, and I will see you next time.